Coming up in this Screencleaner, Pretender, the grift of Pretender, Northern Ireland's new comedy, Mrs. Brown Trousered Boys.
Hold on, Sandy! Hold on!
Graphic journalism talks American Oligarch. Indie truck Davy gives a potted history of the media. And how many immigrants does it take to produce a television show? Just one, but he was responsible for JFK's assassination. Hi, I'm Andy Luke. Channel name Andrew Luke, I'm not Charlie Brooker. And welcome to Screencleaner, a roundup of the week's media stories and any shameless, embarrassing palaver I want to put in. While it's the government that make the law, media dictates policy and imposes itself upon reality. Depending on the behaviour of the media, that can be grass on the sole of your shoe, sand, gum, shit, or fire. The UK's key political TV shows are helmed by recognisable faces, large public in-your faces, but they are merely voice boxes for the real captains, the producer. Like a director's status in film, the producer arranges what all the elements of a broadcast will be and how it is to come together. The BBC's flagship show of the political week is Question Time, presented by news faker Fiona Bruce, part dragon and shit-stirring Scots hater. The assistant producers, Ramsay Beattie and Angus Harron, are all new to their positions, 20-somethings, and with some exceptions, they haven't stayed in one job for longer than 2 years. A decade ago, they were sitting their degrees. In Beattie's case, he had the benefit of an apprentice scheme as he worked at news and politics through BBC Radio. He's just been made assistant producer, joining QT in 2022 as an audience researcher for the show. That's the person responsible for vetting who gets to sit in the studio and whether their questions are any good, or to be told what their questions are.
And tonight they want to ask, where should we be housing asylum seekers?
Now, sometimes the person vetting the audience does get it right.
There are more people in this audience who voted for Boris Johnson, for the Conservative Party, than for any other single party here. So let's have a show of hands, shall we? Who believes Boris Johnson was telling the truth yesterday?
Wow.
And sometimes they'll have a man with his head on upside down who speaks proud as a Yorkshire man, but asylum seekers are getting all-you-can-eat buffets and unironically make Britain great again. But he's not a racist. He's definitely not a racist.
On tonight's panel, the
Privately educated Culture Secretary Lisa had a nanny. Harriet Cross is a Scottish Tory, which is like developing Stockholm Syndrome for the Black Death. Matt Goodwin is Rees-Mogg's replacement on GB Newsround, brought in to appeal to the 18th century toddlers when they get back from the workhouse. And Faisha Shaheen, token norm endorsed by a lot of dubious centre-lefts, but Executive Director of Tax Justice UK. As a freelancer for Premier Christian Radio, Angus Harron worked on pieces about the American and Northern Irish fundamentalists. 4 articles, which hardly constitutes 15 months' work. Harron was added as a researcher straight after his UCL Broadcast Journalism Masters in August 2023. If that causes you to question time, oh, see what I did there? That can be explained by Angus's predilection for amassing work experience positions. So committed to his collection that right after his promotion to assistant producer at QT, he took on a month's internship at The Spectator. Though this could be explained by the summer break between productions. In the most recent episode, straight off the bat, QT indulges in historical recreations, McCarthyism, the witch trials, the Nazi pogroms, all come together in hounding asylum seekers, linking them to lesser priorities like physical poverty, insecurity, the erosion of friendship, disrespect and low achievement. I might wonder if Angus Harron's experience is intended to speed up journalism importing the illnesses of political discourse into the question time vacuum, fucking up the filter. That narrative is embellished then, emblematic by Matt Goodwin, who looks like a white version of Dan Dare's enemy, the Mekong.
Just briefly. There's a group of people that really haven't been mentioned so far, which is the British people.
We forgot about the British. No one thinks about the British. I mentioned the British once, but I think I got away with it.
When did it become acceptable to impose an extreme...
Hang on.
Magnify.
...to impose an...
I'll give you a tenner to milkshake this woman. Just one. Send the proof. Make it 20. Matt Golan claims the sea around Britain is made from asylum seekers, not water. His specialist study is tabloid crime reports, big-upping Johnny Foreigner as skull bashers announced with dubious jubilation.
If we talk about it, we're far right. If we talk about it, we're racist.
Which he just did, so by his own admission.
You're Nazi. You're fascist.
Oh, look at him. He's even trying a Hitler salute like that wee dog. The Bradford crowd quickly turn against swastika Grace Petrie. To their credit, an audience member plays a stats game back at him, highlighting white offenders being in the majority, and calls out Goodwin's kerching. Listen carefully.
A few weeks ago in our country, a Sikh woman was raped on her way to work by two white men who told her to go back to her country. What would you say to the victim of that family and the motivation behind that attack? Do white British people not also commit these violent crimes?
Absolutely.
And is your narrative not that these crimes are only committed by asylum seekers and refugees?
Okay.
Very briefly. I'm interested in evidence.
So this guy has just given out information on women who were raped. Goodwin's response is that he wants to see evidence. It's about him. And the lifeblood to about him and his freedom of information crusade is that scepticism around rape. The reporting of rape. The mask beneath the mask truly slips. A woman was raped, and his direction is to choose to question that. And as Max Robespierre reminds me, 40% of those taking part in the 2024 anti-migrant riots have convictions for domestic violence against women and girls. These were also called the Farage riots, and Goodwin is a champion of the sex offenders' cause. I should just say that's my opinion of the situation and not necessarily Max's, but anybody who burns children in their buildings is a child abuser and messing up their sexuality to boot, which is fuck 'em. Question Time has been on a slide into the abyss for many years now. The 2009 platforming of Klansman Nick Griffin and that actor beneath the hood replaced by Nigel Farage, and Stalin babies like Goodwin. It's a formula ripe for modernising by young recent hires. BT and show's new producer Anna Haines came aboard to manage a programme less than 2 months ago at the start of the September series. Anna Haines is an oddity for a number of reasons. Firstly, she seems to have experience in real television, the type that normal people watch, politically themed thinking comedy, and 34 episodes of QI as a picture researcher and production runner. She's listed on IMDb as senior researcher on Peston, but on LinkedIn as assistant producer. Who knows? In any case, she left just before Angus Harron interned there. A producer for Times Radio's breakfast show, leaving a year before Angus assistant produced the show as a freelancer. Haines committed to 3 years as political producer on ITV's Good Morning Britain. Haines still appears tied with GMB in the March 2025 list of the Parliament Press Gallery. That's people certified by the government to cover Westminster. Haines is unusually visible for a producer. Until last year, she was outspoken on dead Twitter with anti-Farage pro-Starmer commentary. She made the MHP Group 30 to Watch Journalism Awards. Although MHP are just a very large PR firm, so their relationship with awards is a bit like that between a dog's tongue and a dog's genitals. Her work with Dirty Finger Thief of Wine Richard Malady set up her move to Question Time in an outpouring of support quite at odds for someone working behind a camera. The move was charted by The Express, The Mirror, Wales Online, The Daily Record, Devon Live and Coventry Telegraph. Even Sports Blast Network and Daily Updates, Dick Tag, Click Tag sites got in on it. They wanted to know why ITV dismissed Haines. There's no evidence that they did. And they were stating that fans were angry about the dismissal and felt that they weren't being listened to. Presumably many have held out for months, waiting for their ITV Anna Haines fan sticker pack and badges to arrive in the post. Maybe Haines is responsible for the media focus on herself, maybe not. In any case, there's a media career-orientated echo bubble. QT panellists are selected from celebrities, characters. Whether Haines realises it or not, she's doing tribal recruitment, calling up from the clique, carrying on with how things were done before. And that includes keeping people like this narcissistic fellatio for Farage fella. Goodwin markets himself as a scholar, but he's a shit-line conspiracy theorist and not an entertaining one. And then there's like this whole deluge of cripple bashing that follows.
But when I see people with very mild mental health conditions taking £3.5 billion off the white van man.
Van Man's a multi-millionaire too, you say? Well, tax that bastard.
I don't think that's fair.
When producers and Fiona Bruce failed to work together to challenge British rednecks over their lies, the flaws are apparent. Goodwin doesn't seem to mind some migrants, so Bulgarian-born UK naturalised Nikolai Gentchev is QT's executive producer of 10 years and an editor 5 years before. It's a wonder why Gentchev allows the racism to be amplified. An editor is vital in shaping the look and continuity of the finished project. So Gentchev will have developed a close relationship with the show's executive editor, Daniel Maxwell. Primarily because Maxwell has been in that role for 24 years, which is a long time to be sat with Shotcut of Filmora. Take a break, pal. Away out and have some coffee and smoke. Doubling as BBC Scotland executive producer, Maxwell has notably stuck his fat toe on political affairs. Maxwell and Gentchev produced shows on the independence referendum, which met with accusations of bias, low approval ratings, and large protests. Maxwell's work on the Scottish Question Time debate night met with complaints for inviting pro-union audiences and failing to contact Scottish independents. Locking them out was a charge that Maxwell denied. I mean, not directly, he just blathered a lot about his cross-section of invite adverts in a rehearsed impression of Community's Dean Pelton. And of course it's under Maxwell that Farage has been on his show
37.
I'm 37?
38 times.
37. My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks.
In a row?
The same number of times Fiona Bruce interrupted Scottish leader Stephen Flynn last year.
Hey, try not to suck any dick on the way through the parking lot.
So we've got a full picture of who decides how Question Time is. Two old men with power and oversight over three new young people with the burden of responsibility for the work getting done. Presumably all enjoy very large salaries and opportunities. The real test, though, is how they respond to events that actually matter.
I'm stopping the recording because we have a breaking story which we should respond to.
And that's when Fiona busts out her stand-up comedy routine.
So, Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew will no longer be Prince. He will be
The nonce formerly known as Prince Andrew, or Dick and Balls symbol. Nandi in the audience responds to the news by talking about the injustices. But when it gets to God win, because it seems to have been God's decision, he is very keen to take royal pedo scandal and tilt the conversations to non-white migrants. Is Godwin a nonce? I'm not suggesting I just like an answer from him. Has he denied it yet? He even draws the ire of Fiona's barrow.
No, Matt, you've made your
There's a
point.
fourth reason they won't listen to
anybody.
There are people here.
Why
No,
doesn't
Matt,
she?
want to talk
No
about
guest has ever been kicked off question time. Ian Dale threatened to walk off, but no one cares.
But all he keeps going on about is the Pakistanis. He keeps time and time again.
That's Matt Golem, blaming Pakistanis for everything from Pol Pot to those tricky new seals on bottle tops.
To Matt, I think it's quite poor that today you've used immigrants as a scapegoat for every single issue that we've discussed.
He gives himself away.
And put British people where they belong.
Question time, which hasn't moved on from having Nick Griffin as a guest 15 years ago. Perpetuation of programming of violence. Third Reich Gate. At time of broadcast, Angus Harron has not started work experience on Good Morning Britain.
My name's David McGuinness. I'm a co-host of the YouTube channel, The Two Davies, and what we do there is we cover politics and current affairs. Now, my particular interest is media, print and broadcast media, and I've been studying how it is they've went from being the watchdog, which held truth to power, to become a narrative setter. Now, in the past, governments were held to account by the media, who would inform the public of their investigations into what the politics of the day meant for the general public. Now, the media's role has not shifted from scrutinising power to setting a narrative in a linear way, a one-directional way rather. The media has always had the capacity for both roles, with different historical periods and technological developments changing the balance and effectiveness of these functions. Now, to give you some context, early era, late 17th century onwards, following the end of the pre-publication censorship in the late 17th century and the lifting of restrictions on parliamentary reporting by the 1770s, the press in the Western democracies began to develop its watchdog role. This involved holding power to account and exposing corruption, exemplified later by iconic moments like Watergate scandal in the 1970s. Now, 20th century mass media era. Through the 20th century, traditional mass media outlets, newspapers, radio, television, professionalised building norms around objectivity and fact-checking. During this period, the concept of agenda setting became prominent, meaning the media largely determined what issues the public considered important by focusing attentions on certain topics. Well, this allowed the media to shape public discourse, setting the narrative. It operated within a framework that's still highly valuable and can scrutinise power, even to today, if it wants to. And the advent of the digital era, the major shift in the balance between scrutiny and narrative setting occurred with the rise of the internet social media platforms. This era began in the late 1990s and accelerated through to 2010. And it introduced several key characteristics into the media background, and it led to fragmentation and proliferation. The number of media outlets and content producers grew exponentially since the start of social media. And of course, the opening up of broadcast media to new outlets like Talk TV, Talk Radio, GBBs. The number of media outlets and content producers grew exponentially. This created a fragmented landscape where no single entity fully controlled the narrative and people could choose their own news outlets, their own news mix. Now, users generated content. Anyone can be a content creator these days, as you know. Challenging traditional media hierarchies and introducing vast range of alternative perspectives and narratives. But we're talking about how the media no longer holds truth to power. And that takes us to things like investigative journalism. Now, investigative journalism went out the window with 24-hour media because you had to keep moving very, very fast. So the media stopped scrutinising and started narrative setting. So you would get news of what was going on, but you wouldn't get in-depth news. So the owner of whatever outlet it is that you choose could put their spin on it. Now, of course, we enter the digital age and algorithm-driven content, and a audience increasing consuming news via their own preferences, whether it be social media, whether it be print media, whether it be the main broadcasters. Direct communications become so easy. But when did they go for holding truth to power to set narrative? Well, if you want good investigative journalism, now you need to go to Open Democracy, Double Down News, led by donkeys. There's lots of them, you know what I mean. So if you want a good investigative journalism, that's how it should go. Because it's not in our mainstream media. And when did it happen? Well, roughly about 2010. 24-hour news became a thing on the broadcast media. And that meant that they had to keep firing out fresh content. And the owners of these broadcast outlets realised that they couldn't do in-depth anymore. So, you know, things like investigative journalism went out the window in favour of, you know, quick, consumable news. And that led to populism and three-line headlines. Get Brexit done. Stop the boats. Labour for change. These are all examples of how poor the media output is these days. Now, folks, to conclude this, the media didn't simply stop scrutinising power and start selling the narrative or setting the narrative. Rather, the digital age provided new tools and economic pressures that have allowed diverse actors, including those in the power and individual users and various media outlets, to create and decimate their own news. But the main culprits are still the big ones, the big news outlets, the common papers that you get every day, your Sky Newsies. In fact, the BBC's even guilty of it as well. They'll set a narrative in different regions of the UK so that you don't know what's happening in my region and I don't know what's happening in your region. It's not just populism anymore, it's populism and propaganda. Well, anyway, I hope you find that interesting. And when you're picking up your newspaper tomorrow or you're turning on your evening news, remember, they are no longer there to scrutinise power or to inform you. They are there to set the narrative and tell you what to think and when to think it.
Darryl Cunningham is a British creative whose exhaustive approach to graphic journalism has won awards, including an honorary degree from Leeds Art University. Last year, his graphic novel, Elon Musk, American Oligarch, was published in France to high acclaim. Despite the high esteem in which his work is held, there were struggles finding an English language publisher, and the press picked up on the story. The problem was something he attributed to a climate of fear. It's not hard to see correlations within the timeline of Musk's purchase of Twitter and his move towards the Orange House. Musk X has associations of mass layoffs, home invasions, and international privacy breaches, as well as apartheid policies, all of these linking back to Data's evil twin, Lower. American Oligarch got its UK release 2 months ago to an unusually muted response. The left-wing mainstream and comics news sites have historically been supportive of Cunningham. It seems the book's release isn't as interesting a story as the book's problems getting released. The problem sharing that story is a fact that Rich Johnson of Bleeding Cool has picked up upon. Cunningham plied his trade in the Brit underground comic scene for decades, before prominence with his 2010 book Psychiatric Tales. That read is a nurse's view of life on the ward and the challenges there and in greater society owing to taboos around mental illness. Fringe trends were examined in Science Tales, Lies, Hoaxes and Scams, and its follow-up, Graphic Science, 7 Journeys of Discovery, which delves into the biographies of pioneers. My own favourites are Super Crash and Billionaires. The first examines the roots of the biggest robbery of our century, the 2008 financial crisis. It's got an interesting structure, in spending the first section profiling Ayn Rand, her cult, and agenda of social greed and its influence on institutional policy. That link through the book in graphic journalism is really useful for thickos like me who've had it explained 100 times and still don't get it. Billionaires is divided into 3 parts, profiling Rupert Murdoch, the Koch brothers, and Jeff Bezos. Compiling numerous sources, Cunningham gives us insights into their early lives, acquisitions, management practices, and how they've exerted their global reach. Robin Ince rightly compares the book to an open university course. The learning is helped along by consumable visual explainers, even the odd joke here and there. There's a similar reportage in Putin's Russia 2021, which illustrates a timeline of maybe the planet's richest thug and opportunist. It's daring and demystifying. Elon Musk, American oligarch, aka Phony Stark Space Karen, is a great package for clarifying many of the insane stories about the man. It delves into his roots in apartheid South Africa and how those coloured his psychology. Cunningham sticks with facts and tries not to let his opinion show, which helps in giving us a Musk who is not an innovator of any sort, but a big money gambler, a corporate parasite whose failure with SpaceX cost the American public millions of dollars. Particularly frightening is the story of Tesla and Musk's obsession with fully automated cars and the injury and death toll following. There's recent added on material on his destruction of Twitter and move into the White House, fully embracing the Trump-esque desire to piss off everyone and hurt everyone in the worst possible ways. Cunningham gives us both an easy and heartbreaking read, making use of the sequential arts format to tell the narrative from a multitude of perspectives and employ symbolism in motion. It's evolved with humour and ideas. American Oligarch is available from publisher 7 Stories Press and all good bookshops, and you may like to check out a video on this channel where the author himself is interviewed by comics laureate Hannah Berry about the work. Earlier in the show we looked at the production team behind Fiona Bruce and Question Time. Now we turn our attention to a more feral incarnation of the live politics chat TV thing, The Nolan Show.
What did you do?
Stephen Nolan is one of the BBC's highest salaried presenters, with a Wednesday TV show and weekday morning radio slot. He's a divisive figure in Northern Ireland. Actually capable of critical journalism is his show, but spending 98% of the time stirring the shit and making sure it goes everywhere except the toilet. In Northern Ireland, which is 6 county-sized hospitals, throwing feces everywhere isn't such a great idea. It's been many years since I sat down to watch Mr. Bait and Switch, so I thought, actually I didn't think, I just watched the fucker because some of you might be interested.
Is thuggish racism overshadowing legitimate concerns on both sides of the border over immigration?
Is good good or bad bad? Send your opinion by courier to our next village.
He has had racist graffiti daubed on his home. He was driven out of Finnegy last year.
Nolan interviewed Akura Maloney, a very articulate community leader and survivor of racial assault.
I asked him how he was feeling about the racial tensions here.
Oh, I'm sure he's over the moon about it, but why not check with him anyway? You don't want to get it wrong if you're a top investigative reporter like Stephen is.
I'd rather not talk about my feelings and talk about facts.
Nolan asks us in great if there are any issues around being of a different race in Northern Ireland.
The situation is not good.
Can you elaborate on that for me?
Well,
Oh, Stephen's on 405 to 410,000 a year. Please help him do his job.
there are 300 asylum seekers in hotels around Northern Ireland. That's 300, not 300,000.
Here he continued the habitually demeaning questions.
We told all the emotional stories. They don't have an effect, okay? And why...
So they didn't do anything, is that what you're saying?
Reframing statements to misrepresent him.
Do you hold the executive, because of how they've treated you, in such low esteem that you're now not prepared to talk about the human impact?
No, it's not personal.
Steering a Maloney to the victim card, despite repeatedly being asked not to.
But you've had your house daubed with graffiti, right?
Yes, I have. So you want me to be emotional about it?
No, I'm not.
Nolan likes to place himself as a man with, all caps, the truth.
No, I'm trying to ascertain what it is you want from me, because
I want the full picture.
I think this might be what is meant by being passive aggressive.
And you're knee-jerking when I'm trying to say, well, what impact's this had on you? Because
outright hostility is default.
So we all just move on to the point where you kind of think there's no point?
That's not what I said. I said I don't want this to become an emotional discussion.
Okay.
Lying and
the people who are impartial to it also don't care enough to stop being impartial, whether I'm emotional about it or not.
Hey, was that a dig at me? I mean, Nolan does empathise. He'll always go the extra mile to voice the concerns of, without a doubt, racists.
But do you agree with those people who say it is a legitimate position to have, and it's not racist to say, actually it shouldn't be everybody first. Trump's running around saying America first, British people first. That's not racist, is it?
And make sure that racism is understood as the right thing.
So in other words, no matter what the colour of your skin is, maybe you should come first before someone
That's not what I said.
From another country. But it's what.
No, that's not what I said.
I'm surprised Nolan let that bit be broadcast. He usually puts out a super injunction when something makes him uncomfortable.
What do we really represent?
That was a dig at me! That was a dig at me!
But it's actually beyond politicians. It's the media. It's every individual watching this. It's what we want this country to be. I'm kind of sitting here thinking I've got this powerful platform and I've had zero effect on it.
Well, first things first. Through God, all things are possible. So jot that down.
And I haven't really paid attention to it. I'm reporting on it, but I haven't paid attention to it in my own brain.
Yeah, you see, consciousness is tricky when the brain and the mouth aren't connected. From the interview with Maloney, the show moved to a not round table discussion. There's a story about Stephen Nolan I've heard a number of times, which bears repeating. When he set out, he'd broadcast a road show. At each town or city, his team would erect a big top circus tent and invite all the locals around. Stephen would stand in the middle of the ring in his top hat and tails. Livestock ran on the sand or sawdust, chickens, pigs, startled as he raised his cane and pointed it into the crowd. And then he'd select 6 men to show off their bare-knuckle boxing capabilities to the crowd. The rest of the show reminded me of this story. Nolan doesn't introduce the panel like that loser Fiona Bruce. They can each fight for themselves. And we're 10 minutes into the discussion until those names all appear on screen. You know, when they've proved their worth, then the audience can know their affiliation. Unreasonable people and humanitarians are positioned facing one another, placed ready for battle. Jonathan Buckley, DUP, Matt Goodwin Tribute Act, and the panel's most punchable. Timothy Gaston, TUV, not a frothing at the mouth xenophobe honest. John Burrows, UP, the moderate unionist party, though Burrows seems to appropriate the tradition with sceptic face. What me? It was the older brother mum. Owen Tennyson, Alliance. youngest member of the Stormont government. When the DUP were staging one of their biannual yearly shutdowns, he proposed their pay be suspended. So that's pretty good for me. Patrick Corrigan, Amnesty International. Yes. Jerry Carroll, People Before Profit, taking Sinn Féin's place in West Belfast since 2016 on a socialist anti-austerity platform with the genuine grassroots support. Wrong about Brexit. Pulls funny faces and makes good tea.
50,000 people that we know at can cross in small boats into the United Kingdom.
Okay, so 50,000, 6 people a boat. That's 8,333 recurring. Presumably that's a yearly figure, so divide by 365. That's 22 boats per day. Yeah.
You're going on about them.
The problem has been
every single
Jerry,
week in Stormont, you're going on about them. You only talk about HMOs to give out about asylum seekers.
But now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's a nonce, and Jonathan said he liked him.
Public services who pretend to care about housing shortages while burning homes.
Tennyson, Corrigan and Carroll do their best to share some of the actual facts commonly ignored. But Jonathan Buckley, shouts him down at every turn in an appalling display of tantrums. How I might imagine those children who kill other children are. It's early on when he succeeds in beating others into physical violence, so it sounds.
Johnny, you
motions in the assembly
slapped you in the face.
No, you wouldn't do one. Because your party was the party pushing for
kick asylum seekers.
And I found myself feeling unexpected sympathy for Stephen Nolan, who I regarded as Jeremy Kyle in a fat suit.
Stop! No, wait 1 second, right?
He's been immature.
These are your executive colleagues.
Yeah, and I'll stand up and speak up. I'm going to stand up and speak up for a common sense majority that is fed up with being cast as far right and racist because they have genuine concerns about illegal immigration and an uncontrolled aspect of it, which has changed the character of their
already
community.
tonight, Stephen, you have shut this side of the debate down.
I'm a racist and someone pointed it out. I supported Hitler and Pol Pot. It's freedom of speech to highlight the merits of the suffering of thousands of people. And then John Burrows confuses himself arguing for racism because of leaky roofs, enraging Jerry Carroll, so his unspoken words appear to possess Nolan's dormant brain.
But if you're the person who cannot get repaired under your house and a leaking roof, as the estates I go into, I understand their concerns.
Do you? Well, maybe you need to. You're part of the executive. Maybe it's your fault.
Let me tell you what I'm doing.
And every other party in the executive.
Well,
Jesus, he went a bit suicide bomber there.
I'm going to chair this, so shush everyone here when I'm trying to direct
fair.
this.
Be fair enough.
I will be fair.
Give us all a chance.
Don't point at me, please. Go ahead,
me.
Good thing we're all such mates, you and me, eh? All that burning children in their homes, a bit of a laugh, innit? I like to have a wank here and now, so I do. Stephen's production team takes a call from Sandy, whose head has been overrun with a campaign by migrants landing on the shores of Greece to take their president out in a coup or something. Then those lefties doing their facts again, lol. Cue a frankly comical shouting match with little Sandy being swept away in the background.
And welcome those people fleeing war and persecution. I think we're in more trouble. There's a failure for that.
Here's the problem,
with the UK
Patrick.
government and with their own executive.
Patrick, you have to accept that our asylum...
Hold on, Sandy! Hold on! I'm starting to get wound up already. We all talk at the same time.
Tinkerbell did bring it on himself, though. There are crocodiles. He ran the saw back and forward across his arm for an hour and acted surprised when it fell off. The UUP's John Burrows forgets that the unionist versus nationalist thing is over, and that much like the migrant issue, this imagined enemy isn't actually on the panel tonight.
But the problem is, on the kind of nationalist side of the House
I'm a socialist. I'm here for human rights.
Sorry,
not,
and that was a genuine apology.
Take that back.
I do. A genuine
Cross-community party, Joe.
Sorry, genuine apology.
The Alliance Party.
Can I make the point I'm trying to make?
2 years ago, nationalist Sinn Féin decided to boycott the Nolan show, leaving the only nationalist politicians who could be on as 8 people from the SDLP. As I mentioned earlier, Nolan and his production team are capable of actual journalism.
The men who do not want to be identified out of fear of further attacks have been speaking to our reporter, Brendan Marshall.
Marshall is a credited producer. He scooped the National Council for the Training of Journalists 2019 Award for Excellence on graduating from Ulster University's Master's Programme. His breakthrough was reporting on tragic deaths of teens in a stampede at a party in the small town where he's from. This local public journalism is Marshall's forte, and it's okay. Though from what I've heard and seen, I feel his interviewee management skills need work.
So the police have described the attack on your cars as a racially motivated attack. What would you say to those people that came to your house and burnt your car?
He's formed himself as a Nolan boy when it comes to the propensity for asking stupid or inflammatory questions.
And what would you say to those people that do protest?
And then it's back to the studio, where the DUP's Buckley is given free rein to dominate with Joseph Goebbels-like temerity.
Is your party so terrified at...
So terrified. He's been working on his naughties.
From the Alliance Party at the next election, that it seems on a daily basis all you do is target their party.
Yeah, Nolan, terror is the name of the game.
Is that what's going on?
No, I'll tell you what's going on. The DUP will unashamedly target anybody.
On next week's show, representatives from ISIS head-to-head with Palestine Action.
Politically.
All right, I think I follow, fellas. We don't have any legal recourse, right? What you're saying is, we gotta get creative.
That is advancing an agenda that is against the interests of the Northern Ireland
people. But your focus seems to be on alliance.
No, it's across the board. You mentioned in your earlier contribution, is it okay for people to be Northern Ireland first? I'm unashamedly Northern Ireland first.
Which is why when Westminster falls, they'll make over Battle of the Boyne Road, probably in Portadown, as Downing Street.
Migrants are part of Northern Irish society.
I was actually asking,
sorry,
UK people,
Stephen,
British people, Northern Irish people, Irish or British.
Migrants are part of Northern Irish society as well.
Because our taxes should be spent on our people.
Cognitive dissonance going on in this panel tonight. I mean, the idea that people can't connect the dots about what the public are consuming in the media and from their politicians, and then certain individuals who are deranged joining the dots and assuming that migrants are the enemy.
Jonathan Buckley.
It is about an inability to accept difference. Okay. I see the diversity in our community as a strength. I see migrant members of our community as valuable. They make a contribution. They deserve to feel safe and to belong.
Why can't they just integrate and burn pallets and rubber tyres and piss in the streets like the rest of us?
We have seen that with alleged brothels, with alleged drug dealing.
Alleged.
Careful words there, because the BBC have a rule against advertising. He's also careful dealing with legality. Nolan, as an individual, is quite litigious. Timothy Gaston is an MP MLA for the TUV, which stands for Traditional, Unionist, rabid rabies bigot, making the DUP seem like a bunch of sissies. There's a few times where his breach of regulations triggers Nolan KFC.
Case the other day, Stephen, had a 22-year-old
down the road of live court cases, Timothy. What bit of that do you not get? We're not doing it. We are not going down the road of live court cases.
Because you don't want to. That's okay.
Because it backs up. Revelation. I don't want to create contempt of court on a live BBC One television show.
Reported.
Yeah.
And it's left to Jerry Carroll and the Amnesty International rep to school lawmaker Gaston on the law around asylum seekers, after he spread a bunch of disinformation. An update comes through of 2 Dublin Gardaí police in hospital following far-right violence. This stills the panel to talk calmly for all of 2 minutes until Buckley begins incel screaming down their earlobes. He tried the same thing on Question Time in Belfast a few weeks ago. There's a galling link in that if it's okay to be a scumbag in England, it's okay to be a fascist in Belfast.
22-year-old.
We are not getting into a live court case.
No.
Nolan at least has thrown a guest off his show once before. It was on the radio. SDLP MLA Matthew O'Toole, who challenged a guest who was a paramilitary carrier pigeon. This hardline loyalist bias is sadly a facet of Nolan's productions, and as we've seen, he hasn't shied away from voicing sectarianism himself, albeit, as these people might say, balance, representation, bullshit. But what about Nolan's producers, who facilitate this Burkina Faso-style terrorism reality show? Colette McGuire has authentic pedigree in Northern Irish journalism. Declaring bias here, because in 1990-ish, for a week, I worked with Colette as part of my work experience on the County Down Spectator. My memories of her are of someone pleasant and competent, real journalist. She'd moved to presenting BBC Newsline. In this clip, she interviews an anonymous hunger striker during the Holy Cross primary school riots. If you're too young to remember, it's as bad as it sounds. A group of big Brit patriots assaulting Catholic kiddywinks on their way in and out of school. Pedagogical pederasty. Stones, bricks, fireworks, blast bombs, and urine-filled balloons. Fuck Northern Ireland. So, Colette McGuire, working for over 30 years as a journalist and editor at BBC Northern Ireland. Who's next? Peter Cinnamon. Is he made from cinnamon? Is that the Christmas planet of spiced lattes? He's primarily a Radio Ulster DJ who's got the biggest hits, classic throwbacks, and feel-good tunes to perfectly soundtrack your day. Johnny Muir has been working for BBC Northern Ireland since 1998. Not much info on him. He seems to have come through the camera director route with a love of sound work and is a partner of beloved Radio Ulster arts presenter Marie-Louise Moore. Production executive Grace McQuinston has 20 years experience as a BBC producer. This includes several years working on Points of View with Jeremy Vine, at the time produced in Northern Ireland. So there you have it, a team with their fingers on the pulse of culturally critical issues and reportage, but equally so to the popular pop, the honest arts in the institutions, and TV production shine, and very much in Nolan Show's DNA. Ultimately, it's an ugly watch, but also authentic. There's a sense that at any moment someone might punch a fascist, though that notion is something of a prick tease. A show very much invested in platforming figures of a conflict narrative. As Akura Maloney says at the top of the show, uncomfortable conversations have to happen with people we may not necessarily like or who have done wrong things to us. But I also can't help thinking, ignore them and they'll go away. Instead of bringing in the great dictators of the 6 counties, he might ask people of rational, progressive mindsets to talk with each other about prioritised issues which aren't manufactured by Peter Thiel's /fic. Set an example to X and emerging terrorists and Joe Public, who say they're so lost. Well, that's all from Screencleaner this time, unless you're like weeks late and you've got the next episode and the next episode and the next episode to watch. So remember to don't like, comment, subscribe, then comment, don't subscribe again, just keep commenting, and it helps the algorithm out. Bring down the government.